going on? Zach here coming at you today in Raid Shadow Legends. Today we're going to talk about what is the best starter, which is the best starter here in 2022. And this is a massive question. I cannot tackle it alone. So I have my friend Darth Microtransaction on with me. Darth, what's up, man? How you doing?
Having a really good day, as is tradition.
That is indeed, my friend. So starting champions, man, like things have changed since, 2018.
It's a different game.
2019.
It's a different game.
There's a lot of new areas. There's, when you pick your starter, it's generally the first champion that you're going to take to 6 stars in this game. It's going to be your campaign farmer. It's going to be your arena nuker. It's going to be, serving a lot of purposes, your DPS on clan boss. So let's think about which of the starters that we would go with now. It's not as easy anymore as just saying, oh, it's Kael, move on, So with that said, why don't you've done a lot with, a lot of free-to-play accounts. You've had like 8 free-to-play accounts. I feel like I've had a couple as well. So we have a good perspective.
Without spending.
This is our handbook. I wrote the whole thing myself.
We have a good perspective of A, starting over in the game, and B, playing the game without spending too. So we have spending. So we have like a
actually my favorite part of the game. The beginning of Raid, I found out was my favorite part of Raid because I think the developing the accounts are fun, and picking the starters and having different early strategies is where I've enjoyed the game the most. And I'm particularly a free to play. I haven't spent money in like a year and a half at this point. So all of the accounts are early game, free to play style. So it should fit perfect for this video.
Fantastic, man. Well, I'm interested to hear your insight, and I'm trying to fix my build so I don't set a bad example for people at the same time. Who is your least favorite out of the 4 starters? Let's start at the bottom here. Who you're not really feeling right now?
The bottom of the barrel, huh? I got to be honest with you, it's Elhain. And I'll just go right into the details of why.
Yeah.
Is that, in particular, I think when we're picking one of the 4, it's the first hero, okay? All of the
You're gonna give me more money?
4 heroes can do the exact same primary important thing, which is farm 12-3 Brutal in the campaign, which is your basically best silver and experience ratio per energy. So that is where you're going to farm. Now, Galek, Elhain, Athel, Kael, they're all going to do that. So what you have to determine between the 4 is what do they do beyond that? What else do they bring to your roster of heroes and tools in the tool belt? The problem with Elhain is she doesn't have debuffs associated with her. So she's not really bringing utility to other heroes. What she brings to the table is just a raw amount of damage, which is good in the beginning because you have to have damage to progress. But then at a certain point, damage is no longer enough, and the other heroes might offer more to the equation. Therefore, she's number 4 for me.
Okay, cool. I think that Elhain is the best arena nuker if I want to give her anything out of the 4.
I agree.
So, maybe if you start out with another one of these champions and you happen to pull her, she's still worth, investing in as an arena nuker in the early game. But I agree with you, man. I think that she's not a trash champion. She has 2 AoE attacks. She has a 2-hitter as well on her A3. They're both on a 3-turn or a 4-turn and a 3-turn cooldown. So she can put out a lot of damage, but I agree with you actually, man. For me, it's close with her and maybe the next champion we talk about in terms of the worst 2 or the 2 that I wouldn't go with.
Assuming Galek.
Yeah, exactly, Galek. But I will say that between her and Galek, I think it's kind of a coin toss personally. But all 4 of these starter champions are way better than your average rare champion, even in the stats too. I mean, Elhain is at 107 speed, really solid for a rare champion, not to mention, her damage output and stuff like that. So I think that all these, you can't really go wrong. You're not going to make a mistake by going with any of these champions as starters.
It's not like it's a count ending on day 1 when you pick the hero.
Exactly, and they all have the same
starting
aura.
Pokemon, you're going to get more.
And they all have the same aura too, so you're generally going to be running your starter as your aura lead as well. So who do you have next? Did you agree it's Galek?
I think Galek's number 3.
Galek is the worst starter in the game. Choose Elhain. Let's see how that works out for you. Do we have the clip?
He didn't choose me.
Oh, I never get tired of seeing that.
I understand the argument about coin flip. I disagree. I think he's number 3. However, I don't think it's like by a wide margin or anything. I don't think it's like obvious. I just think that my reasoning behind it is mostly he has an increased speed on his A2. He has a double hit on his A1, which you could argue Elhain does as well. But then he has a quadra hit on his A3, meaning, and it's random, admittedly, but the quadra hit will allow him in things like Fire Knight, where actually the speed up plus the double hit plus the quadra hit actually help a lot in Fire Knight. And then on top of it, when you get to a singular boss, the 4 hit, you can actually get the double decreased defense down land at a decent rate once he's booked. You probably don't want to put books into any of these guys, except maybe Kael and Athel, as we'll talk about later, I'm sure. But as it stands, I don't think he's as bad as Elhain, because I think he can add utility just in the fact that he can hit multiple times more than the others, and that's about it.
Sure, I think that, I don't know. It's really tough between these two, but I agree with what you said. At least he's bringing something to the table. He can make himself faster, which is nice as well. I have no hate for Galek at all. In fact, when I maxed him out just to try him out, he wasn't my starter that I chose. I was actually pretty impressed with his damage overall. Like, he can out damage, a bunch of the other rare champions that you have access to in the early game. So, but I do agree. I think I would probably go Galek over Elhain as well. Who do you have as number 2?
So this is where it's kind of a matter of opinion, and I'm sure some people would disagree. For number 2, it's actually Kael. I'm going to be a little bit of a hipster. Normally, Kael's number 1, and personally, I think Kael has been number 1 up until almost basically right about now. And the reason I feel that way is that Kael really provides 3 good things. He provides a consistent way of poisoning. So we have a way of dealing mass damage to clan boss, and like Ice Golem and places like this where poison really matter sometimes immediately, like right off the start. Okay, so that can help you get the first clan boss chest and stuff like that. On top of it, the boosting turn meter off the A2 is a good farming mechanic. Okay, it also helps with campaign in the beginning, also pretty good in arena also. And then he has the same thing I was talking about before with the quadra hit from Galek, so he also has the 4 hit going on too. That's pretty good. Kael is normally considered to be number 1 for that reason, and I would normally agree, but I just think that poison in particular has become an additional thing where it's like you get another hero that does something and poisons, like Frozen Banshee. Holy moly, my TV just yelled at me. Like Frozen Banshee, basically.
Like, how dare you pick Kael number 2?
I know, it's like I didn't understand that. The TV does not like my opinions on this game. That's just how I see it. There's other people that do poisons within the same rarity level. Frozen Banshee is just one such example that also brings other things onto it. He also does a 2.5% poison, not a 5% on his basic. So eventually you literally don't even want him on the team for poisons itself, because he's adding the bad versions of poisons. So eventually he doesn't even feel the role that you originally picked him for, granted, into the future. But that is something that has happened on every one of my free-to-play accounts. If I had Kael, I didn't use him for poison because it was easier to get other poisoners. So he's still good though.
It's really crazy here, Darth, but you bring up some good points. I almost feel like there's kind of 2 tiers, right? There's Elhain, there's Galek, and then there's Kael and Athel. Because I agree, I would go Kael over Athel, but it is very, very close, man. And the reason I would go Kael over Athel is, you're right, poison has become way more bountiful in the game amongst dozens and dozens, hundreds of champions they've released over the years. So it's not as special that, hey, he has poison on 2 abilities, right? However, in the early game, you're not really given much in terms of poisoners in the early game, and poison is by far the best method to take down the dragon and the clan boss. So I feel like for those reasons, I'd probably still err on the side of Kael, and the fact that, to your point, you mentioned it too, that the turn meter fill helps you out a lot in campaign and can be your arena nuker. So he's really helping you out in a lot of the areas that you might struggle in the early game. Athel does have some benefits to him, though, so let's go ahead and talk about Athel, your number 1 champion.
First of all, I want to say that I think your logic's pretty sound.
Real men of genius.
Real men of genius.
Like, your Kael logic, like that's pretty much the traditional logic, and it's really hard to argue against that because you're right. I mean, all those points are right. As far as Athel goes, I think this is where this is probably why I don't like Kael as much as Athel, just because I'm a really big fan of Athel.
Sure. I get you.
So what I would say is that a triple hit on basic is really exciting for me every time I see that on a hero. in particular on free to play, it's helped me a lot in Fire Knight just to get a few heroes that have triple hit on basic.
Oh, yeah.
They also lowered the number of hits it requires on Fire Knight, so just getting like a singular triple hit actually helps a ton. On top of it, the weaken is really rare still.
It's the most underrated part of her kit, I feel like, this weekend. You know?
Oh, I completely agree, because the 25% weaken on basic is fairly rare, especially in the aspect that's a triple hit. So you have multiple chances to apply this.
It's only on the last hit. It's only on the last hit that she applies it, but it's 100% land rate when you book her.
For some reason, I'm way off on that thing. I thought she could apply the weaken on any of the three
Has a
hits,
100% chance of landing a 25% weaken debuff for 2 turns on the last hit, but still, I mean,
so it's 100%.
As long as, when you book her, it's 100% chance, and that's the big version of weaken. So on an A1 for 2 turns, that's pretty crazy.
So I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Pretty hard to fight against. The A2 bonus turn's pretty nice because it's a little bit of a cheese tactic. It's not really the reason I like her, but it is kind of cool the way it works with reflex. You can do like the bonus turn into reflex and the bonus turn thing is kind of fun. And on top of it, her A2 damage is solid. She actually buffs herself. So you have somebody that can basically increase your arena damage without needing to have a buffer on the team, which is kind of nice. And personally, that's how I see her. I think that she's more exciting because of the bonus turn, the bonus buff, the AoE damage, the weaken, and the triple hit. I find that combination of utilities to be something that the other heroes, for me, can't overwhelm with what they bring to the table. Like, I agree with your tier thing, where it's like, we have Kael and Athel, and they're way up here, and we go through 18 miles of garbage, and then we have Galek and
I think this is probably enough. This is crime.
Kael will immediately probably gain you more advantage, but I feel like in the long run, if I didn't pull a weekend, that would
might
really
last you
make
longer
me
in the
mad.
game. She might last you longer. Whereas traditionally, it was always Kael will last you way longer in the game. But I feel like now you can actually get that poison from other champions a little bit easier. He's a little bit squishier too than Athel. And then Athel can actually, she could use her Fire Knight, heck, all the way up to Fire Knight 20 or even beyond in other areas as well. And I love that you mentioned the gains an extra turn, because I don't think, at least with me, when I started this game, I didn't realize the power of gains an extra turn. You know, I looked at this ability when I started the game, Darth, and I thought to myself, increase attack on herself, increase defense, if that, whatever. Who cares? It's a crap ability, you know? Ow! But now I realize it didn't take me long to say, hey, gains an extra turn means that this, if it was off cooldown, it's now, or if it was on cooldown, it's now off cooldown, or it's 1 turn less. So she's doing AoE attacks way more often because she's always proccing these extra turns, giving her extra time or extra chances at landing that weaken and keeping that weaken up against bosses as well. And weaken, for those of you who don't know, that's 25%. Weaken is 25% extra damage onto the boss. It's great against bosses, hard to find too in the early game. So yeah, man, I no hate towards Athel at all. It's a tough decision, you know?
It's a tough decision for sure. I agree. The 25% also increases the damage off things like masteries, you know?
Yeah.
So like having that weaken's insane. It's not like it's just ignore defense or something like that. On top of it, she works really good with the gear that you get from the tournaments in the beginning. So in the beginning, tournaments are something you can actually win, because there's a lot of people that like join and then quit. And so the competition, even as free to play in the beginning, is not that bad. You can actually win. You can pick tournaments up. On every single season of free to play, I've been able to pick up multiple tournaments in like first place and get Relentless gear. And Relentless gear also works really well on Athel. It works better on Athel than it does on Galek or Kael, because how it works is you get the bonus turn, so you have another chance to proc the Relentless, basically, right? So you can do the A3 Relentless proc into another A2 to another Relentless proc and do it again. So if you get the wombo combo, it can be hilarious. Obviously, it's RNG, but the Relentless gear doesn't work as much on Galek and Kael because it's just like boosting the turn meter than if you got the Relentless, proc anyway. You're just kind of wasting the boost, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
So it's more exciting for me on Athel, but that is kind of like that's another niche thing where it's like Relentless and Reflex is more exciting on her. And I tend to do things that are more fun and I find more enjoyable. And that's just one of the things I really like, is that hilarious combo. My clan boss team sucks, but it's all everyone's in relentless gear and it's all chargers for the whole team, because I think that's hilarious. You know?
Yeah, I think that Athel, I mean, I'm using her right now in Gold 4 just for S's and G's in the background here. And man, she can put out some decent damage, dude. She can really put out, she can be a very viable arena nuker. You're talking me into Athel, Darth. But
she's not
hey,
bad.
man,
I actually think she's good.
I think she's really good too, man. I think I might change my vote. So listen, TLDR at the end of the video, guys. First of all, if you're downloading the game, congratulations, welcome. Check out my beginner's guide. Check out Darth Microtransactions YouTube channel as well. He has a bunch of beginner content. As he mentioned, he has, 5 free-to-play series out there as well, which will help people. Even if you're not completely free to play, it's going to help you in the early game, kind of orient you as to what you should be focusing on. So Darth, thanks so much for joining us and giving your opinions, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and I'm not 100% right, just one man's opinion. So
you are 100% right. You heard it here first. He's
all the
always
time.
Right, guys.
Every time.
Check out his channel in the description below, guys. If you're new here, I invite you to subscribe to the channel as well. I also have a download link. If you guys are just getting started or you haven't gotten started yet, for like the next 30 days or so, you can get a free Epic Champion Vergis. I don't get like paid or anything from the link, so feel free to go ahead and use it or share it with a friend. Thank you guys for watching all the way till the end. Appreciate you, and as always, take care, guys.